Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here is your host, Mark Newbold.
That's not true. That's impossible.
You're listening to episode 4 of Making Tracks. I'm your host, Mark Newbold, and joining me, as always, again, Dave, do your own intro. I like it when you do your own intro.
Fourth time is the charm. It's me, Mario. I don't know why. As soon as I said it's me, I just thought of Mario.
Luigi.
Oh, good. See, this is what happens when you pick Uncle Buck. Hi, everyone. It's Dave Tree from All the Cool Stuff and the Fantha Tracks YouTube channel. I hope everybody's well and they've had a great 2 weeks. Mark, how much has happened in the last 2 weeks? It's been nuts.
It's been nuts. It's been beyond nuts. It's been monkey nuts. I struggle to think of a time that's had more stuff going on, apart from when they sort of announced the Disney acquisition and the trilogy and all that. Like, it just seems to have been crazy the last few weeks. There's so much to talk about, which we're going to talk about because that's what we're here to do, to talk about it. Yeah, it has. It's been bonkers. And the World Cup has started and the weather's really nice. And
Love Island.
And thank you. Love Island is wonderful. I'm getting a thumbs up from my left. So yeah, so it's all good. It's all good. I cannot complain. What about you? Have you been busy?
It's been crazy couple of weeks, as it always is here. There's about 500 plates that I spin all at once.
You are a plate spinner.
And I'm like that guy that's on the variety show on the stage, and he's like, literally, that is how I lead my life. So it's been pretty full on in terms of Star Wars stuff, or Star Wars related bits and bobs. I had a lovely visit from the wonderful Matt Booker last week, and we did do a very quick, rough and ready YouTube video of the Collectology Boba Fett stamps. I've also had from Hasbro Solo Wave 2 come in, which is all right. Not terrible, but it's not the strongest stuff.
Is it just me, or are the card backs thinner now?
Kind of, yeah. There is a thinner stock, but it's no different from what the vintage stock was. You know, okay. They've been using that since about 2012 or so. But the cards are smaller. It's a smaller footprint than historically what the typical Star Wars backing card has always been.
Yeah. More
consideration for environmental packaging is what they want you to hear. The reality is it means you can get more on a pallet. You can ship more, but the press-friendly reason is that it's more consideration to the planet Earth. And
it's something that you would appreciate because it's saving the trees.
Oh, I'm all about saving the trees.
Yes.
I mean, there's been like a million conversations going on. And at the last episode we were talking about nasty face of social media and its interaction. And I guess now there's an element of that to play with some of the announcements. It's got like that kind of like knock-on effect that's been going on. Yeah. With some of the news that we've had in the last 2 weeks as well. It's a whirlwind. And I look forward to every time we get to do this because it's quite topical. It's not like you're just necessarily reading off a press release. It's like actual proper, real meaty, debatey stuff. Allows us to get it all off our chests.
We like meaty, debatey stuff. Let's start doing some meaty debating. That sounds wrong. Let's talk. We broke a story at the start of last week on Fantha Tracks on the site about Billy D. Williams coming back in episode 9 to play Lando Calrissian. Now, from what we understand, as much as we can confirm it, and we've had separate people sort of confirm the confirmations and yada, 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 it's happening, it's going to go. What are your thoughts on that? Are you pleased that Billy D's back as Lando? Are you pleased that the character's back? Do you think the film needs it? I'll kick off the conversation and say, yes, I'm glad he's back, and I think it does need it. What do you think?
There's two ways to look at it. You could say, is it bowing to pressure? The fans are calling for it, so we get it in there. But also, really, from a story side of things, nobody's got to be with everyone all the same time. You can bring these people back in as and when required. So after the events of Return of the Jedi, I didn't mean that everybody settled down and had a happy life. That's clearly evident from within the story of Han and Leia kind of ending up going their own separate ways. That doesn't mean that Lando had to be coming in there from the start. As to what degree that he plays, given the situation the Resistance found themselves in at the end of The Last Jedi. Who knows? It'd be kind of cool to see him being part of that, or maybe he's someone else. You know, I prefer to have that kind of character as the fringe person. I'd rather have him be brought back into it than someone like Maz Kanata.
I did a couple of podcasts yesterday, as you know. I was on Skywalking Through Neverland, and I did the Force Cast, which is the first time I've done it for about 7 or 8 years. Really pleased to be invited on both shows. Great fun. And we mentioned this whole Lando thing. When I was talking to the guys on the Force Cast, the one thing that I said was that I think, when I was asked how prominent do you think Lando will be in the film, I said more than Maz in The Last Jedi, but less than Maz in The Force Awakens, because I kind of think he fulfills a very similar role. Yeah. Because like you say, at the end of The Last Jedi, they're basically putting this call out for help. Who's going to respond? Who's going to answer the call? Your gut now, knowing that Billy Dee's involved, tells you that Lando is going to answer the call because of all the history that we've just seen in Solo. We know from Empire and Jedi. You know, it just feels like the right logical thing and the right time for him to come back.
It would be fantastic, especially riding off the back of Solo. Lando as a character has been brought back into the mainstream. I think that's something that people kind of have been overlooking. They've been calling for it, but he's never really been talked about until now. Whereas Han, Leia, Luke, they've all had that over the last sort of few years. And you've had that kind of interaction, and you've come to terms with who and what those people have become. Their stories have been told in some respects. You understand, you know, a little bit more about them. Lando is actually, and Chewie as well, and R2, and to a lesser degree 3PO. Yeah. But out of those core characters, Lando is the only one that's kind of left out in the open. Lando could be like the Hondo Anaka. He's like up and down all the time. You either see him and he's completely on the up, or he's completely stony broke. That's what I love about those sorts of characters, that they are the chances. They are either go in or go home kind of thing. It could be well played. It could be a return to Canto Bight. He's actually there. He's like picking up all the credits. Looking at all the betting slips from the Fathia races or something like that.
Scuffed, old-looking Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah. Or maybe he had an insurance policy on a Fathia that escaped. You know, and you know he's come quids in or something like that. I mean, to be honest, that would have been the opportunity to have brought him in up to this point, and maybe he was like the code breaker or the slicer, the contact to find that. But
man of many talents.
I mean, this has all been debated to death, but it's super cool and great, and really where you know how this story's been played out for some of the characters. You know how the story's been played out for some of the people who breathe life into these characters in real life. So to kind of bring that heritage back on board, I think is great.
Back at Fanta Day, back in December last year, it had a couple of guests, one of which was designer and sculptor Martin Rezard. Now, we had a great day, didn't we? We had a great couple of days. Let's have a listen. This is me having a chat with Martin Rezard, designer and sculptor on the new wave of Disney Star Wars films.
So we're here at Fordingbridge, but farthest from, it's the Sunday of the show, so it's the vintage show. What time is it? It's 1 o'clock, so it's nice and busy. We're sat here with Martin Rezard.
Hello.
We had Mon Calcon last night, which was great fun.
It was, yes.
Yeah, you did a talk with Paul.
Yeah, I had a little presentation of behind the scenes, some of images and a bit of insight into the way we do things and why and who is, and just a bit beyond what you find in the books or in the documentaries, just a bit more personal, I suppose.
You did a Q&A, you were interacting with the audience. Do you like, obviously there's certain things you can't give away, but do you like giving people a feel and a sense of what happens behind the scenes? Because that's all the stuff that we see on the screen. We have no idea what the work that's gone into that. Do you enjoy getting that across to people?
I really do, because when I was young and I knew what I wanted to do, but there was no way to be able to grab any sort of information or knowledge. It was really a chore in itself. I was brought up in France, and all I had was English magazines or American magazines. I had to dig them out, go to the proper bookshops to find them and try and understand what they were talking about. So being able to transmit some of what I've learned through my career and to be able to share it with people who are interested in it is, for me, it's just a nice return, I think.
Yeah.
It's just because when I was young, I would have loved to be able to have someone in the business talk to me and explain how things are done and how it works. And I didn't get that chance. So being able to do it now, it just seems the normal thing to do for me.
Yeah. So what was the spark then? You say you were in France, you were looking out for English and American magazines. What was the initial spark that made you think, well, this is the route that I want to go down?
Probably, I would say American Werewolf in London, Return of the Jedi, Gremlins, Ghostbusters, The Dark Crystal, Greystoke, all that kind of period in the mid-80s when we had so many FX rubber-driven films coming out, and that's the time when I went.
Rob Bottin, Rick Baker, all those guys.
When I started to see that those guys were making those things that were appearing on screen, I was going, if I can't do that, I can't see any way to be around. It's got to be something like that or else.
So how did you get your foot on the ladder then? Where was the start, in a practical sense, where did you actually start?
In my parents' garage, in my mum's oven, which smelled of rubber on weekends. There was a magazine in France called Mad Movies, which is still being edited.
Yeah.
And they had a readers section.
Yeah.
And they would give information on how to do things and kind of. So I did a couple of makeups on my little brother and posted a picture in that magazine. And then I got a phone call from. There was my name and the place where I lived. And I got a phone call a couple of weeks after publication. This guy said, "Are you Martin Rezard?" Yeah. Well, I saw your picture and I actually live in the same street as you and I do the same thing. So could we hook up? So we hooked up and we developed things together and we worked on Super 8 films. And there was Super 8 Festival in Paris where every year people would just submit Super 8 films, outrageously violent and bloody and gory and a good reason to get your girlfriend's tits out on screen and all these kind of things. So we were involved into this kind of thing. And this friend, Jean-Christophe Spadaccini, he has now one of the main makeup effects studio in Paris, and he's never stopped doing it. And I kind of went another route. I travelled a bit. I married an Australian woman. We went to Australia for about 7 years, and then came back to Europe and worked in England. And so my trajectory was a bit more English speaking than my friend's trajectory.
Do you feel that travelling around helped? I mean, you've seen a bit of the world, obviously. Does that help you when you're designing to see different things?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's kind of. I don't take anything for granted nowadays. It's just like if you move somewhere else, all the angles and all the opinions will be slightly different. So it's kind of got to keep an open mind, I suppose, and that's always good.
You worked on some pretty iconic characters for The Force Awakens. How does that feel when you're going back and you're getting characters like you mentioned, Return of the Jedi? A couple of characters you worked on from that film, and you get to work on them all these years later. How does that feel?
Oh, it's just incredibly lucky. I just feel incredibly lucky, and even after all these years, I still suffer from that syndrome that you feel like every day you're going to be discovered as a fraud. I still live with that, but less now because obviously I'm getting older and I don't care that much anymore. But it used to be a daily occurrence. Every time I would get a new job, be accepted in a new team, I would go, all those guys around me, they're just so much better than me. How long is it going to take them to realize I'm not as good as they think I am? But actually, mingling with very talented people just teaches you a lot about how to do things and humility more than anything. I just take my job very seriously, but I don't take myself too seriously.
Well, we could tell that last night. We could tell that in the talk last night. When you're working, you mentioned somebody had said, how often do you work on a creature that you think that's amazing and it doesn't get seen on screen? And you said last night, that's just the nature of the business. That's just how it is. How do you know, by the same token, if you're working on something, how soon do you know that this is working or this isn't working? Do you get a sense of that?
Yeah, you might. But I mean, the part that I provide for the film is dependent on very many things. It's dependent on storyline, on editing, on light, on voice, on sound. So we provide, when we make creatures, we provide what we can provide with like designs and performance and everything. But at the end of the day, it's just a little cog in a big mechanism. You never know exactly what it's going to look like until you sit in the cinema and watch the film. That's why I always find incredibly frustrating to see people online reacting really, really strongly to kind of previews or teasers or trailers where you see a little picture of this or worse, like leaked pictures taken out of context, and they start falling like a ton of brick, going, this is really rubbish. Well, this might not be finished, this might just be work in progress. It's not, things don't look the same if they're not lit properly. I mean, a movie has a cinematographer for a good reason. Like the light tells the story. All this is, at the end of the day, we make those things just to be filmed and be part of the storytelling process. They're not made to be scrutinized under a harsh light before being finished, you know. So you never know really until you sit in the film and sit in the cinema and watch the film and go, okay, well that kind of works within the storyline. That's a nice character. You can get snippets of that on set, but you never get the full picture until the film's finished, really. Yeah.
Are you ever surprised then when you see it back? I mean, even on set, because you're seeing stuff on set on the screens as you're making it, do you ever see something and go, I didn't expect that? That kind of surprised me?
Yeah,
in a good way?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it happens all the time. I noticed that very, very early on when I was in my very early days. I did some masks for theatre and things, like really basic things, but I just loved spending the time doing the masks, and you kind of think, when you spend so much time focusing on a character that you sculpt and cast and mold, etc., you kind of feel like you own it a little bit, and then you give it to a performer, and then suddenly you look at it, you go, what is that thing? It's just something else altogether. I never saw that coming. Just because, once again, I'm just part of a process. I'm not supplying anything that's completely finished. It's just there's more to a story, telling a story.
The life into it in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's good. It's good to see.
Yeah, and you know when you got the right guy or the right lady in that. You know when that person has nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really magic. It's great. Yeah,
brilliant.
You've been involved right from the very concept of creating some of these creatures that we see. Is there one that you're particularly proud of that managed to make it onto the screen? I know from some of your work, my favourites are sort of 3 bird-like creatures in Maz's castle. I just love them with the long snouts.
Well, I love them all. Some of them get bigger screen time than others. I was quite happy with Radus because he's kind of he's a proper character. He's a proper character, and he's got. Akbar was one of my favourite when I saw the film originally. So to be given the tasks of expanding over that race of creatures and kind of opening up and give it another version, that was a dream for me. And the way it turned out, and the way it looked, and the way it was performed and moved, the whole thing altogether, I'm kind of quite satisfied with that. Yeah.
So is there anything on your wish list, final question, anything on your wish list you would love to do that you've not yet done, throughout not just Star Wars but throughout your career, a creature, a type of creature, or something else, anything you've not attempted yet, maybe the technology's not up to it in terms of materials, or is this something you'd love to do or love to challenge? Big or small?
I like being surprised what comes up. So obviously most of the characters I've been able to work with on Star Wars were kind of background, if you will. So being able to come up with a design that kind of stands up for itself and can be defining a character, that's something I still strive to achieve, and I haven't seen that yet. So I just want to keep on going.
So Martin was a great guest. He was great fun, and you never know what to expect from these people. He had me laughing my head off because he was just so funny. What were your interactions with him like?
He was absolutely fantastic, and I was so happy that he was able to join us for that weekend. So many of these sorts of events, you get the chance to interact with people who've breathed life into characters in one form or another, but you don't really get much of a chance to interact with the people who help create them, either from a conceptual perspective or literally physically creating those characters based on their costume design or like their creature character design and things like that. When you look at his breadth of work beyond Star Wars itself, he's literally worked on so many things that are blockbuster movies or television series that you're just like, holy cow, it's absolutely phenomenal. And then he's talking to you from the point of view of like designing characters and then the constraints. Paul Casey came down as well, and Paul Casey was more or less like a muse for Martin with creating the design elements and, you know, trying to like create movement and allowing Paul to be able to breathe and things like that, you know, so that they don't keel over. It was just the level of insight. You just don't get that opportunity, especially from a physical creation as well, because so much of these things are taken care of post-production, that they are either cleaned up digitally or created digitally. You're not really getting the opportunities to see this kind of work as frequently as you did with that original trilogy. And so they're few and far between. So those rare opportunities to get that one-on-one time to see and talk about it, to me is actually priceless. You know, that's as close as you're going to get to directors and producers being able to sit down and talk to you, because they're talking at it at a level that you just literally have no understanding of, but getting that chance to understand. So for me, it was an absolute belter for him to come down. And I hope we'll see him again soon as well, because that was pre-Last Jedi. So now he can talk about Last Jedi. He can talk about Solo. So there's a whole heap of stuff that he can now hopefully talk about. So let's get him down again.
Well, that's a great advert for Farthest From. That's another reason why everybody needs to make the pilgrimage to Fordham Bridge and come and see the show, because you get to see stuff that you don't see anywhere else. You just mentioned, obviously, we just talked to Martin. We mentioned Paul Casey. Stepping away from Farthest From and Fan Today and back to Star Wars Fan Fun Day in Burnley, which we were all at. Paul played Edrio Two Tubes in Rogue One, and Edrio's, I think they call it egg brother or pod brother, I'm not sure which one it is, was Benthic, and Benthic was performed by Aidan Cook. Now, I made the cardinal sin of getting Edrio and Benthic mixed up. You will hear
How could you?
I know. You'll hear my massive...
You monster!
I'm a muppet. You'll hear my massive faux pas in this interview. I'm so humble I left it in. My massive cock up. Others would edit, but I just left it in. So this is me making a fool of myself, talking to Aidan Cook at Star Wars Fan Fun Day.
We're here at Star Wars Fan Fun Day in Burnley. It's been a lovely day. Weather's been awesome. Crowd's been fantastic. How have you enjoyed your day?
Yeah, absolutely brilliantly. Yeah, I mean, it has been very relaxed, very chilled. Everybody, it's felt like a real kind of family event. You know, lots of children, which is really nice to see. And a definite sort of charity vibe to it as well, which is very special to me. You know, this is actually only the second one of these that I've done. So the first one was actually a week ago in France, and I was travelling back with Caroline Blakiston and Gerald Home, and oddly, on the journey back from France, they were talking about this as having been one of their favourite gigs. And then the following day I had a call in the morning saying, somebody's dropped out, would I be able to come up? And so, I mean, I had all the recommendations that I needed, and no, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here, and what a lovely bunch of people.
I was going to say, we as fans, you know, and people who commentate on Star Wars, if you like, we always think of this as one of the nicest shows, a friendly show.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's nice to know if this is only your second show, you've been exposed to the good side of it all.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, France was the same. France it's been running for 20 years. This was its 20th anniversary. Yeah. And again, it's very, very sort of charity oriented, very family oriented, and the chap who arranged it for me said, you know, because I've been a bit reticent about doing them for various reasons. I've been busy, which has been brilliant, but also there's a sort of a fine line between being there so that the fans can talk to you and you can chat to them and give them some insight into what's going on, but also I don't want to feel that I'm exploiting anybody either. And so I think the chap who arranged the French one said that was a really good one to kind of start with, you know, to get that. So I've had two experiences that have been absolutely brilliant, you know, so I should probably retire at this point and not do anymore.
Because
I've been spoiled, I think.
You've been very spoiled. It's not always this.
No, I'm sure it's
though, being in that mix, Saw Gerrera's crowd, we've got beatboxing going on behind us, this is wonderful. Being in that mix and in that crowd, what was it like? Because making that film, there was a lot of pressure, there was a lot going on, there was a lot riding on it because it was the first Star Wars story.
Yes.
But we all got a wonderful film at the back end of it.
Yeah.
How satisfying was that for you?
Well, I mean, hugely satisfying. I mean, I've had the great sort of, gift to have been in all the films so far. Yeah. And I always have to watch the films 2 or 3 times. The first time I watched them, I'm only looking out for the creature stuff. And I tend, on the whole, to be disappointed that the creatures aren't as featured as I would like them to be, or a lot of the stuff that's been shot doesn't make the final cut. Yeah. But in Rogue, I was, even though stuff had been cut, there was still a really lovely chunk of the stuff that I did. I mean, I was working on that. I did Boar Gullet was the first thing that we worked on. We worked on I was one of the calamari with Paul playing Radus, and a couple of other bits and pieces as well, which I'm not really supposed to talk about. But, for me personally, I was all over that film, and then I went back and watched it again and really enjoyed it as a film. And I think with the standalone, slightly off your question, but the standalone films have less of a burden, because there's a huge amount of expectation. There's critical success from the critics that they're looking for. There's also trying to keep the fans pleased. There's also trying to fit it into the Star Wars universe and all of that. And that's an unbelievably difficult thing it's a really difficult trick to pull off. And I think with the standalones, there's a lot more leeway. So even though we had like Michael and Lawrence, Kasdan, working on the scripts and stuff, and they were kind of very insistent, really, that it worked along the lines of the script, because they had a very clear idea of what they wanted, and there were certain sort of artistic differences, which I think everybody knows about now, where different modes of working, there was a certain amount of clash. When Ron came in, obviously, he's right on it, so they had a wonderfully self pair of hands, but because of that sort of thing with the standalones, I believe they have the potential to be brilliant, and I know we're waiting for the film to come out, but if they show what they shot, I think it could be absolutely awesome, and we're in the know for stuff that's in there, and I think it has the potential to be jaw-dropping in places.
We've heard this from a few of the guys. We've got some friends who worked on the production and other aspects of it, and everybody's saying no one's got a clue what's coming. No one's going to be ready for how cool this film is.
But I mean, I personally think the trailers were given a huge amount away, but then I suppose we're looking at it with although we never get to see a script, we see if you've got any lines, you get your sides on the day on a dark red thing with it in black, so you couldn't possibly photocopy it with your name all over it. It's signed out, it's signed back in, so we don't have an idea of the overall story, but the scenes that we've been involved with, and there are some awesome stuff, and if it makes a cut, it's going to be fabulous. So we're very excited and hopeful,
So you're in a sweet spot at the moment where just before the film comes out, it's going to be awesome. Obviously you can't say anything.
No.
So that's an exciting.
It is an exciting place to be.
And fingers crossed, more productions coming ahead.
Yes, I can. I can't tell you anything. I have been in for makeup tests already for 9, and that's as much as I can tell you. But I mean, if they want, I hope they keep using me. But it's such a privilege to be. And it's days like today that bring that privilege home to you. It's because of you guys that we're enjoying that success. So,
well, that's wonderful. And make sure this isn't your second and last one. Make sure you keep doing it.
I'll be sparing.
That's wonderful. Thank you again.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Fan Fun Day was good fun, wasn't it? We had a good time down there, and the weather was nice, and the grass was green, and proper English convention, wasn't it?
It was a lot of fun. It was quite strange for me because when I'm at these things, I'm either actually running a stall or an event itself. So it was great to be able to be part of a team of people without feeling like I've got to do all of this bits and pieces. It was quite surreal for me in a way, and it allowed me to actually relax and enjoy it a bit more and
I
walk around as a giant porg.
Exactly. Oh yeah, yes. There's many stories about you dressed as a porg. I've got to say it was nice. It was a bit like when they battery farm chickens, but then they do them naturally in the field. It was nice to see you in your natural environment, not penned in. It was nice to see a free-roaming Dave Tree, especially dressed as a giant faux puffin. Best bit was when Booker went walking off and you were left stood in the middle of the signing area completely lost, and all we could hear was you going, help!
Well, I don't think people could quite appreciate. I mean, anybody in the costume at that event will understand this. Where you've got limited visibility, and for anybody who has absolutely zero idea what I'm talking about, I had a Porg costume made for the December Farthest From that was all for the evening event, because it was a week before The Last Jedi came out as well. So it was all part of that sort of real hype and excitement. I said, oh, well, I'll bring up the costume to Burnley. If the opportunity arises, then I'll stick it on. And it was baking hot, and it was probably not the best idea, but I did it nonetheless because, again, I was kind of at a loose end. Within that venue, you got limited visibility, and the eyes of the Porg.
The eyes of the Porg. That sounds like
the eyes of a Porg. The soulless eyes of a Porg. The judgmental eyes of the Porg. You know, so there you go. There's a trilogy of books. You can't really see. And at Burnley, one side is wall. The other side is sheet glass overlooking the football pitch. So I turn one way and I can just about make things out. I turn towards the glass, which is where all the guests are. I can't see anything because all I've got is brilliant light coming in and things are silhouetted. So literally I couldn't see anything. I had to stand there because I couldn't actually make out anything. Either Matt or Martin would have to kind of hold my hand and lead me to go anywhere. But there were genuinely moments where Matt would just like run off because he's like an excited little schoolgirl. And, you know, he saw a Boba Fett or something like that. I don't know where Matt is. I can't see because I can't see if there's anybody around me or anything like that. The head and the costume wasn't allowing me to have that kind of freedom of movement.
But it worked. When you were just stood there, statuesque, with your plumage, I think it got a lot of admirers, you know.
Laying an egg.
You just occasionally moved your hands to mimic flight. It was very impressive.
That was to actually pump air into the costume.
Is that what it was?
So you're flapping your wings, which looks like fits in with the character.
Many people can say that.
But it's actually like helping get some air in the scene. Oh, happy days.
Hi, this is Gareth Edwards, director of the best standalone Star Wars film since Caravan of Courage, called Rogue One. You're listening to Panther Tracks. Enjoy.
So one of the things we did on the site over the last couple of weeks was that we ran a competition. It was a competition in association with Tops UK. So it was to win a set of starter packs of the Lando, or rather the Solo A Star Wars Story stickers. So in the pack, you get the sticker album and you get a selection of stickers in their own little wax packets. We also threw in 10 extra packs of stickers with that. So you could win that as a prize. The competition has ended. The deal was that you need, if you think you've won or you want the prize, you need to listen to this episode. This is the minute you've been waiting for. I'm now going to announce, drum roll, the 4 winners of the starter sets. I will start from the top. So the first winner, Strictly Geeking, that's at Strictly Geeking, Geekin 5. Second winner, My Star Wars Life Debt, at Bloody Orm, ORME, great name. Third winner was Sam Cronis, Cronis with Kronis. And the fourth winner, Silver Fox, that's at Jam Scone, that's SCONE 78. They might have given their age away. Scone, grass, bath, whatever. So we didn't have a winner of the uncut sheet. We had a very, very cool Tops Solo A Star Wars Story uncut sheet. Nobody either picked up that it was available or entered for it, so that's going to roll over to a later competition. So that'll just get tucked away in the archive and it'll come out again at a later date. The 4 winners, what you need to do, you need to email us, news@fanthatracks.com. Drop us an email, just say competition win, Solo A Star Wars Story stickers, and just let us know your details. Put in your correct associative details, and then I will drop you a line on social media just to confirm you are who you say you are, and we'll get it all moving. So there are your 4 winners of the competition.
Congratulations, everyone. That is fantastic.
It's Tuesday night. Time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. Welcome to Making Tracks.
One of the other things that we've been talking about this week, another big piece of news that broke, was, I guess the best way of putting it, is the pause on the film projects, on the standalone movies. We'd been hearing news of Kenobi coming out after episode 9 and that things were moving along. And then news breaks that they're having a pause and having to think, most likely because Solo's not done the box office they expected. What are your thoughts on that, Dave? What do you think the reasons are for it? Do you think it's a good idea?
Well, it sort of dovetails in with what we discussed on the last episode, not so much in terms of online bullying and things like that, but like the general negativity. And My personal feeling is that this is just literally the whole negativity in general, picking up on something and then running with it and then making that the full thing. Respective of the performance of things in one form or another, I don't think you're going to see anything being cut completely, or I would be entirely surprised to see things cut. Reason being on a number of levels. Number one, you got episode 9, which is next year. There's nothing after that if you literally leave it like that. So they're not going to leave it like that. They're not going to leave it like that. There is going to be other things being developed and worked on. That is a fact. Number two, you also have the obligation to all the licensees. So all these people who have pumped money into the franchise in one form or another, they're going to need to know what they're committing to next. So Solo might not have done the box office expectations that were placed on it, but that doesn't mean it's done badly as a merchandise front. There's not been as much merchandise, not even remotely close to it, but it doesn't mean that it's done badly on that front. You just don't know. It's one of those things. I was talking to Martin from Fantatrax TV that we're going to be doing a little side spin-off YouTube video soon about the potential collectability of Solo as an area to collect, because there hasn't been an awful lot to collect anyway, which means it's relatively achievable. But like also down the line, these things that actually might have more of a collectability, which is a terrible word, but more of a desirability than other forms of Star Wars movie releases, purely because that is the one iteration of the Falcon you'll ever get. You'll never see that again. There is the one iteration of Chewie that you'll get, because they seem to have marketed Chewie with goggles a lot, more so than the single bandolier and the shotgun. It's not like with other forms of Star Wars releases that you've had that Chewbacca figure and they've used the Chewbacca mold across multiple things. This is very specific, so you'll not have a return to these things again. But if you think beyond episode 9, and genuinely things are being worked on now, it's not that I'm trying to hint that I know something that you don't, but I can't talk about it because, or any of that rubbish, because I genuinely hate that, because it's always setting false expectation without actually even knowing anything. But what I do know is that the toy industry does work substantially in advance, and particularly on things like this, that they will be doing preliminary stuff, developing before they firm it up. So they need something beyond that, because they paid for some of these licenses. So it's not really a pause either, because you know that there's something that'll be going on in some form. And Star Wars is not pumping these things out to the same degree that Marvel is, with about 3 or 4 films productions a year. I don't see this as a bad thing. It's something that they are having to look at why things didn't meet the expectations they did. We're all able to offer opinions on that. As to whether or not they would listen to those opinions or even want to look at the real reasons and defer blame into other areas, which is, again, very common in a corporate situation, that the real problems aren't fully identified. Everybody knows the reasons why, but nobody's going to literally stake their job on it. And they're quite often blamed in other areas, like it's oversaturated or it was a bad time. It's like, yes, those were factors that came into it, but they weren't necessarily the real problems. So I don't see this as a problem. They're going to be pumping out TV shows. They're going to be pumping out cartoons. They're going to be pumping out movies. They're going to be pumping out video games. They're going to be pumping out action figures, construction toys, board games, all sorts of stuff. Clickbait kind of report to me anyway, because it's like, yes, there might be a pause, but who's to say there isn't a pause with every movie that's come out so far, because they need to see what's happening with it. Don't tell me for a second.
It's not a bad idea just to take stock for a moment. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Don't tell me that they didn't put pause button on everything after Force Awakens to see what happened. What was the reaction to that? They did the same thing again with Rogue One. Then they did the same thing they couldn't really do the same thing for Last Jedi because they had that opening slot for Solo. So because everything is either amazing or everything is either terrible because of the world we live in. I feel that everything is terrible and we want to see this fail and we told you so and all this. To me, this feels like one of those kind of articles. And Solo's not a complete flop because you still got like box offices coming in. It's not necessarily been the greatest that they would have hoped for.
There's still money over in Japan, so it's still got a potential of bringing in another 50, 60 million from abroad.
And then you've got the home releases as well.
Exactly.
So like when you have a list of 10 films, one of them's going to come last. I'm not saying that Solo is the one that comes last or whatever, but like it's literally the mentality we have. It's either got to be the biggest thing and best thing, or it's got to be the worst thing. And like you ruined my childhood and all of that kind of rubbish. There's no in between. We live in a society where it's just complete polar opposites the whole time. It's dumb. I'm done. I'm getting out of here. What about what's your thoughts on it, Mark?
I think if they do pause and take stock and have a think about what they want to do going forward, that makes all the sense in the world to me, because obviously they would have had their expectations for Solo, certainly at the box office. If you're just purely looking at box office, I mean, creatively, they nailed it. There's no doubt. There's no issues there. It wasn't a failure in quality. Considering they had the directorial change, I think they pulled it out of the bag like they did with Rogue One. So there's no issues there, I don't think, at all. I think maybe the marketing needs looking at. I think there was drop the ball there. I think they probably now in retrospect would have released it in December if they'd had their chance again, because it was such a busy marketplace. But in terms of pausing the whole thing, yeah, I think you're probably right. I think these things probably happen all the time that you just never hear about it. And because there's such a paucity of good news and so much bad news, it gets picked up on and run with. Until a couple of weeks before this news came out, we knew, or we understood to our best knowledge, that they were just rolling straight off 9 into Kenobi. Great news. If they're taking a little pause to have a think and a rejig, then again, that's fine, because they've not given us a bad film yet. If there are changes at the top, if Kathleen Kennedy is moving up or moving out, as rumours again speculate, and somebody else is coming in, whoever's coming in is going to want to put their own stamp on the saga, and maybe there might be changes there. They might not want to inherit what's already laid out. But by the same token, so much time and effort. You've just mentioned the licensees. It's an 18-month lead for an action figure, for example. There's so many. That's what I said earlier. It's like a giant Jenga game. You pull the wrong stick out, the whole thing falls apart. And it's not just the films. It's all the ancillary stuff. It's all the merchandising and just the profile of Star Wars. It's a huge, huge thing to do. So you can't blame them for wanting to, have a moment and just think deeply about it, because there's so much at stake.
Everybody needs kind of like that reaction now. They have to have that opinion put on record now and all this sort of stuff. And it's kind of like, nah, look at how big this whole machine is. Look at how much money is tied up in investments and in licenses and all that sort of stuff. It's not all or nothing. You do have things reviewed. The obvious examples of that are like the director changes that you've seen on some of the productions. So things are being reviewed continuously. And next time we're together and we're talking about this, we'll be saying, oh, hey, look, they've just greenlit and officially announced this or that or something like that, which makes it good and makes it interesting and is why we're kind of here. Without that, we have nothing. I really don't see that this is kind of like the end of Star Wars or anything like that. And being a fan for the duration that I have, you can kind of see when things kind of dissipate out. You saw it with Jedi, and then it went into like Ewoks and droids and things like that. You kind of saw it with Revenge of the Sith, and then it was brought back for Clone Wars in 2007, 2008. You can tell, you can see, the signals are very, very different. And this to me isn't that at all.
Now,
as long as, and we're starting this now, as long as hashtag Lobot for 1X. As long as Lobot is in episode 9.
Agreed.
So if we're bringing Lando back, we have Lobot. And then if we get the hashtag Lobot for 1X trending everywhere, then we will get that Lobot spin-off movie that we've all wanted.
I agree. I know John Hollis isn't around anymore, but there's a lot of recasting going on, so it could be done. I want to see the old buddy movie, Lobot and Probot. That's the one I want to see. I think that would be awesome.
I was just literally drinking a drink.
Sorry, dude. My creativity has no time for people drinking.
He was 2 weeks away from retirement. The other one was a rookie.
Gotta be done.
That'd be brilliant.
when we were at Star Wars Fan Fun Day, one of the other people that we spoke to was Andrew Jack. Now, you'll know Andrew Jack. He was Major Ematt in Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. You see him walk out onto the salts of Crate and do his little scratchy bit with his foot. But what I didn't know, was that he was also a dialect coach who'd worked on a lot of the movies, and he's got a Hollywood history going way back. So this is me having a really interesting chat with Andrew Jack back at Star Wars Fan Fun Day.
So we're here at Star Wars Fan Fun Day.
Yes.
It's been a lovely hot day.
Yes.
Have you enjoyed your time?
Oh, it's been wonderful. I've experienced, this is the first one I've been able to do in UK, because I'm very fortunate and I've been working all the time, so I've had to refuse at least half a dozen invitations. I have done two. I have a home in Australia, and I've been able to do a couple, one in Sydney and one in Brisbane. Nothing like this at all. Pandemonium, and this is so lovely, and it's family oriented, and everybody's charming, very helpful. And it's been a great day, and what a way to spend Bank Holiday Monday.
That's true. So you've enjoyed the opportunity to chat with the kids and see all the stuff that's going on, because it is, like you say, it's a family-friendly event.
Absolutely, yeah, and everybody's been wonderful. I'm very interested in what I do, because I'm not only Major Ematt, who became General Ematt, but I'm also the dialect coach for the whole series from the beginning, from Force Awakens right through the last 4 Star Wars movies, and that's what I do for a living. I'm a dialect coach, originally an actor, so that's what got me into dialect coaching, and now I'm in an amazing position where I've just come off Avengers Infinity War with Chris Hemsworth. I coached him for Thor, and then Thor Ragnarok, which we did in Australia, and Robert Downey Jr. I've worked with since we realized we've known each other for 25 years. We started with Chaplin, and then went to the 2 Sherlocks, a film called Restoration, and now I'm doing Dr. Dolittle with him, which I'm on tomorrow. We've got 8 o'clock call tomorrow morning, and so I'm really lucky. I've done an amazing amount of really top-notch movies. It's been fantastic.
I had no idea. To my shame, I should have known this. I did not know about the dialect coach, so that must have taken you on a heck of a journey across different films.
It's been extraordinary. And the first movie I ever did, I taught at Lambda for 10 years. Once I'd not exactly abandoned acting, but I thought I would teach for a bit and learned a huge amount about what I do now as a dialect coach and how to approach people and all that. But where was I going? I was going to say my first big movie was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And what a way to begin. I mean, it's fantastic. Last of the Mohicans, Chaplin, and then on and on and on until where we are now. So we're looking at, I started, I suppose, in 1987, being a professional dialect coach, and then it's gone on till now.
So in terms of the new films then, if you think about it, you've probably got one of the longest standing relationships with Lucasfilm.
Apart from Anthony Daniels, who has appeared in every single one, including the Solo Star Wars story. He's in that. You're going to have to look for him.
Oh, we're looking forward to that.
But otherwise, yes. I mean, I've been involved with the most recent trilogy and the other 2, the spin-offs of Rogue One and Solo. And I've also been privileged to write the alien dialogue, so that's something else I do, and people are intrigued and on other movies have asked me to do the same sort of thing. So I mean, it's just wonderful, and people will go on employing me, and that's fine, and they pay me to do what I absolutely adore doing, and I don't think I will retire. I'll just go on and on and on until I fall over.
So how did the role come to you? Obviously, you say the voice acting and dialects and stuff is your main bread and butter, I would say.
Yes.
How did the character come to you?
I was doing the prep work for Force Awakens at Pinewood Studios with J.J. Abrams and actors who were auditioning with screen tests for the roles that they had. Daisy Ridley didn't know she'd already been cast. She thought she was filling in as another actor for the young men who were coming along to play Finn, who auditioned, and then I ended up coaching her and John Boyega for his American. And while we were doing this, JJ, I'm really privileged to say, and I were mucking about with accents. And he looked at me and he said, "Are you an actor, Andrew?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Oh, I don't know, you've just got to look." And so I didn't quite know what that meant. Did I look like an actor? But it transpired that I looked like a Star Wars character. And within a couple of weeks, I was cast as Emmett, who wasn't in the movie as Emmett. He was an admiral, of a nondescript admiral who just happened to be there for a scene. And along comes Major Ematt. After Major Ematt came Greg Rucka's book, which was Smuggler's Run, in which this man, Major Ematt, is Lieutenant Ematt, who gets lost and he loses his crew, and Han Solo and Chewbacca go and find him with the Millennium Falcon. And then going from 7 on to 8, I got the promotion and became one of Princess Leia's right-hand blokes. And got a promotion and became a general.
You're clearly having a blast with it.
It's a riot. I love it. Absolutely fantastic. And as I say, as long as I can go on and they're prepared to pay me money for it, I'm going to go on doing it. And it's a wonderful thing to do. I wasn't a Star Wars fanatic at all, and I still can't call myself that, but I so enjoy doing it. And I love the inventiveness and the creativity. And being able to do what I love doing with all the actors. I'm not specifically with anybody in particular. So I work with all the actors, and then when a bit of Alien comes along, then I'll do that. But there are other things. I'm doing other movies. As I said, I'm doing Dr. Dolittle now with Mr. Downey, and then there'll be other things, and there are things in the pipeline for next year as well.
Wonderful. And final question. Hopefully, you had a promotion between 7 and 8. Are you hoping for another promotion between 8 and 9?
I think the promotion's already had, and he didn't get on the Falcon at the end of the last movie, so it's doubtful. But you never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
It's Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thanks for your time.
Not at all.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
So there you have it. That's the end of episode 4. It feels like we finished a Star Wars film, doesn't it? Episode 4. If you want to contact us, you can catch us everywhere, pretty much everywhere on social media at Fantatracks. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Fantatracks. You can email us news@fantatracks.com. You can find me on Twitter at prefect_timing. Mr. Treat, where can people find you apart from in the dungeon of your shop?
Arguably, is there any better place to find me? I would say you can find me on Twitter, but they've deleted my Twitter account, and I don't know why.
Who? What? When? What?
Yeah, it was all the cool stuff, and someone pointed out, saying you don't have your account anymore. I went on there, and it's literally no longer exists. I would say find us on Twitter at farthest_from until we get that one back up and running. I honestly don't know what's happened there.
Some French guy's taking it. Obviously, some French guys.
No, it literally does not exist. It's all blacked out.
Are you sure you didn't hit delete by mistake?
I've not logged in there. So
obviously a busy account.
Yeah, so I did say that in the last episode. To be fair, give me a reason. But you will be able to find me on Facebook at the Farthest From Show, UK Retro Star Wars Toy Show, and you can also find me at all the cool stuff on Facebook as well. So, and also without question, the leading channel for Star Wars content on YouTube, Fantatracks, which has actually been pumping out some amazing stuff.
We're about to hit 100 vids, aren't we?
I think we need to do a 100 episode special a la the Star Wars show.
Who would think?
I've been working on a song. I think we all could perform this or something like that. Matt Booker could be the equivalent for Pablo.
Is it more Do They Know It's Christmas, or is it more We Are the World? I mean, what sort of level do we go? Is it the frog chorus, or is it?
I would say it's more like Vindaloo, but
no, that works. Especially with the World Cup on, that works great.
But we got to mark that 100th video with something with actual production values and proper content.
Have we done that yet?
Actually, there's an amazing video. If you haven't subscribed to Fantha Tracks on YouTube, please do. It's growing all the time, and it's really cool to see that. And we're getting a lot of interaction. But like by far, for me, 3 things.
Go for it.
The best video that is on there at the moment is literally Martin at the weekend with yourself, Mark, went up to the Return of the Garrison at the Leicester Space Centre.
Yeah, and Carl. Carl was there as well. Carl filmed it.
Carl and Julian Glover, aka General Veers, was at the event, and Martin presented Julian the first glimpse at the Black Series 6-inch figure of General Veers, and it was the first time he'd actually sort of seen and it was captured on film, his reaction to seeing a 6-inch version of himself there. Yeah. So that was really genuinely quite cool, because it's like the first time he's seen this iteration of that action figure and the likeness of himself. Number 2, if you haven't already, get yourself onto Fantha Tracks on YouTube to listen to the Details interview in full that we had a excerpt of at the last episode. It's absolutely phenomenal. And number 3, not just on YouTube, but if you haven't listened to Fantha Down Under with Adam, it is brilliant. I'm just halfway through episode 4 now. For me, it's doubly weird to hear Jeremy Beckett on there, who's a long-time friend, but he's kind of going native now, and he's picking up that Aussie twang. And it's kind of weird, because to me, he's always been a real country bumpkin, the way he talks and stuff like that. And now he's like with an Australian twang. It's kind of, I just sent him a message like, what? He was like saying, oh, everybody thinks I'm Irish, which I think is absolutely fantastic. If you're listening to this, also listen to Fantha Down Under, because it's absolutely amazing content Adam's been like putting together there as well. So big shout out and plug there for that. So and then just on Fantha Tracks as a whole, you can find me there. This is the longest way you can find me ever.
It is.
Shut up, Dave.
Good. We're going to reconvene in 2 weeks. We'll talk about more Star Wars. There's definitely going to be more stuff happening, because there's always more stuff happening. We've got London Film and Comic Con coming up, Farthest From coming up, we've got Fantha Day coming up, we've got loads to do, and it's all good. So I'm going to say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Dave, say goodbye to everyone.
Bye, everyone. I love you. And don't forget to message us. Let us know what you think, because I want to be reading out. Give me something to do other than like talk about the rights and wrongs of the world and stuff like that. And don't get me started on pop vinyls.
I'm just going to end this show with one final word that needs no reply. Bendums.